Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, we are kicking off the year with a thrift to treasure. So it is going to be focused on all things red and pink, and yes, Valentine's Day is right around the corner, so I thought how appropriate, reds and pinks. Now stick around to the very end because I do want to cover how I felt 2023 went and what are some of my goals for 2024. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and I cannot wait to hear what you guys all think. For Project 1, I recently thrifted this metal container at the Goodwill Bins. What caught my eye was all that beautiful detail, guys. Look at that. Now, I did not like the color, and I am grabbing White Swan from DIY Paint, and I am applying 2 even coats of White Swan to the container. I'm going to let it dry very thoroughly, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to seal it with Big Top. Once it completely dries, then we're going to use some milk paint. And if you guys haven't used Sweet Pickins milk paint yet, you're in for a real treat, and you're going to see what amazing things that paint will do to this container. For those of you who haven't used DIY paint before, it can be reactivated with water, so you will want to seal it with something such as Big Top, which is a DIY sealer. Otherwise, you can use any type of wax or any other type of top coat, but the DIY paint can be reactivated with water, so this is definitely the next step you want to take, especially since we are going to top it now with milk paint. And I want to mention that all the products in today's video you can order on my website at www.sonnetsgardenblooms.com. I recently started offering Sweet Pickins milk paint, and I have played around with it quite a bit. And you guys, I am slightly obsessed with it. It is so fun and very unpredictable. So you don't exactly know where it's going to crack or what it's going to do, where you're going to get chippiness, but that's the fun of it. So how this works is I use a scooper, and it's 50% powder to 50% water. So it's a 50-50 mixture, super easy. What I do is I dump the mixture in, or the powder in the container first. Then I take warm water, and I just take 1 even scoop of warm water and dump that in. And then I am going to use my whisk, and I am going to whisk it. And this gets rid of like all the clumps. I have heard people use like an emergent blender as well. I have had no problems with using my little whisk. You can even use just a paintbrush, but really you want to get any of the clumps out if possible. So I stir it really well, and then I'm going to let it sit for about 10 minutes to set up, and your consistency should be like a melted milkshake. So I'm going to let this sit for a bit, and let's start painting. Now that I've let it sit for roughly 10 minutes, I'm re-stirring it, and you can see that it does have a nice melted milkshake type of consistency, and I'm applying an even coat now. So once I get this completely applied, I am going to take my heat gun and I am going to zap it with a heat gun, which encourages cracking and texture. If you would not want anything like that, do not use a heat gun, and you can add extra bond to your mixture, which will help prevent chipping and will give you a nice smooth finish. After the first coat is dry, I repeat that whole process again. So I apply a second coat of paint, I zap it with that heat gun to really encourage that crackling, and then it's time to finish this project up. Now that the container is completely dry, the next step is to grab your sandpaper. Whether you use a hand sander or you do this by hand, I just take whatever type of sandpaper that I have on hand, and here I am rubbing it. So after whatever project you apply the milk paint to, it is recommended you sand it, and so I am just going to rub the sandpaper all over. I really want that white to pop through, so that white swan that I have on that first coat, I want that to pop through. Plus, it's kind of hard to see, but there is so much crackle goodness going on as well. So after I get done sanding, then we're going to do the next step, and we are going to use the Sweet Pickens dark oil wax. And you guys, I do not know how I lived without this product. I don't know how I didn't know about it prior to offering Sweet Pickens. It is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to show you. Here is the dark oil wax. Now, the first time I used it, I wiped it on with a piece of paper towel, and I felt like it did not do what it should have. I felt like the paper towel absorbed more of the oil wax than the actual project itself. So a viewer recommended I used a chip brush. So what I'm doing here is I dump it on, I take my chip brush, and I smooth the oil wax over the entire project. Now let it sit for about 10 minutes to really absorb into that milk paint, and then take a piece of paper towel or something to wipe away the excess. And when you do that, oh gosh, you guys, it just brings out all that amazing detail and all that crackle goodness that the milk paint creates. And I am slightly obsessed, like I said, with this, and I don't know how I lived without it for so long. I want to use it now on all my projects. The oil wax does come in white, clear, black, or dark, and I cannot wait to dabble with the others. Here is that final step. We're going to take just a piece of paper towel, wipe away the excess of that oil wax, and oh gosh, I love how this is looking, and I cannot wait to get this in my booth. I know it will not last long. I just love how that oil wax absorbs into that milk paint and just brings out all the beautiful crackle goodness. For project 2, I was at the Goodwill Bins and I found this metal heart. I believe it is wood and then it has a metal overlay on it. It looks like it is handcrafted, but I thought it was so cool looking, although it is a bit dark. So I am using Marquee, one of my favorite reds from DIY Paint, and I am just going to dry brush very lightly over the entire piece, just a nice dry brushed layer. It can be reactivated with water, or the DIY paint can be. So this is perfect. I'm going to just dry brush it all over, let it dry, and then I'm going to come back and I want to wet distress it. I want to take away a little bit more of the red because I want some of that metal to show through and I want more of the details to pop. If you haven't wet distressed before, it is super easy. Just take a damp rag and then rub over all your raised areas. And I love how all that detail is popping. I also felt like I wanted a bit more of the metal to show, so I took the rag and I just even wiped some of the metal area below the raised surfaces. And you guys, I am just loving how this is looking. I just felt like the heart was a little bit too dark for my taste, and I thought the red would make it pop. Lastly, I'm just using Big Top. I'm going to seal the entire piece, and this project is complete. So a super simple way to just transform an item by adding a bit of paint, wet distressing, and sealing. For project 3, I was at the Goodwill Bins and this other lady had the most amazing scale in her cart. It was super vintage and it was the color red. And I saw this scale and I grabbed it and I thought, I can try to replicate the look and feel of that scale. So I'm using Marquee again, and I am going to apply 2 even coats of Marquee to the scale. I'm not going to apply anything to the front, just the full exterior, including the bottom, and I'm going to let that dry very thoroughly. And this is going to be a super simple flip just by adding a bit of color. And again, we're going to wet distress. I want to make it look a bit aged and worn, and I want a bit of that white to pop through. Now that 2 coats are completely dry, I am using that wet rag again and just rubbing over all the different edges just to make the white pop through just a little bit here and there. I don't want a ton of white to pop through, but just enough here and there to make it look like it's been used. There's some age to it. Was I completely satisfied? No, I really wanted that old vintage scale the other lady had, but I think I kind of came close to making it look similar. The last step here is to seal my piece. Anytime you do seal DIY paint, definitely let it cure, typically 30 days. And I thought about adding a bit of dark wax to this as well. I might go back and do that just to give it a little bit more of an aged look. But at this point, I'm very happy with the outcome of the scale. And I think based on what I had to work with, it came out pretty darn good. For project 4, I found this cute little frame tapestry. You guys know how much I love florals. I'm a gardener, and this just really caught my eye. I loved how it was so springy looking as well. This is going to be a super simple fix as well, and what I did not want to do was take it out of the frame. On the back, it had like a piece of paper already sealing the whole back. So what I decided to do was just take some scrap paper and cover up the tapestry. And this will protect it from getting any paint on it. And then we're going to use Marquee again, and I'm applying just 1 even coat of Marquee to the entire frame. I'm going to let that dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to come back, and if you look right around the very edge of the frame, there's a bit of gold. I want to wet distress that because I want that gold just to pop through just a tiny bit. So here I'm taking that damp rag again, and I'm starting right on that edge where that gold was, and there's a lot of detail there. So I'm just lightly wet distressing there, and you don't have to even rub that hard. With only 1 coat of paint, it really reactivates pretty quick and comes off. So after I do that, then I'm going to go to the next edge or the next raised surface, just add a little bit of wet distressing there. I want just a tiny bit of that wood to pop through, and then we're going to let this completely dry, and then we're going to seal it. So I am sealing it again with Big Top, and as I was sealing it, I felt like it needed just something more. So I am going to use the Sweet Pickins Dark Oil Wax on top of this. I decided to use the Sweet Pickins Dark Oil Wax. I already had it out for the other projects. I possibly could have just used the DIY's dark wax as well if you do not have this, but I thought, well, this will be a good opportunity for me to see how these two products work together, and they do beautifully. For my fifth and final project, anytime I'm out thrifting and I stumble upon a picnic basket, I'm grabbing it. This one was very sturdy. I was not too happy about the top, but I knew that a piece of decoupage paper could definitely transform this. When using decoupage paper, you can do one of two things. You can leave it as is and you can apply the decoupage paper directly to your piece, or if you want the colors of the paper to really pop, you can paint the underside of your project white. So I am using White Swan and I'm applying 2 even coats of White Swan to the top, and then we're going to apply that decoupage paper. When picking out the piece of decoupage paper I wanted to use, I knew that I was going to use that same milk paint on the base, which is Wildflower, which is that beautiful pink. And this paper called Dragonflies by Roycycled, in the actual wings of that one dragonfly, there's a little bit of pink, and it was just perfect. So I cut away the excess paper that I can use on a future project, and now I'm trying to figure out what I actually want to show on the top. I determined that I wanted both of the dragonflies and a bit of that like florally leaf on each of the edges. So I line everything up, and now it's time to start decoupaging. Since I started using decoupage paper, I have learned so much, you guys. The first thing I always recommend is using liquid patina from DIY. It is the perfect decoupage medium to use with Roycycled paper. The second thing is do a starter strip. And what this does, it helps you alleviate a lot of the wrinkles and gives you a much better control over your paper. And then now I've seen Royce wet her paper. It almost activates like the fibers in the paper. So I use my misting bottle and I mist the back side of the paper, and then I start smoothing it out with my paintbrush. And you can see there's virtually no wrinkles. And once I get this all set up, then I am going to completely finish applying the liquid patina to the rest of the top, and then take my misting bottle and mist the rest of my paper, and then take my paintbrush and then smooth it all the way down. And this completely alleviates all those wrinkles and you get a perfect finish. While the top is drying, I am using the extra milk paint that I did have, and I am applying it to the entire base of the picnic basket. Now, I determined after I got all of it on that it needed a second coat, so I just went and I mixed up a second batch of the milk paint. So again, a 1-to-1 mixture, and I applied a second coat. I then went around and I added the paint to the very edge or the very top rim of the basket, and I also painted the handles. Now, I did mention earlier on that sometimes milk paint reacts very differently to different surfaces. Well, it did not like being on that metal, and it literally chipped off. So in the end, I come up with a secondary solution for the handles, which I think I actually am very happy it happened because I was not too keen on the pink on the handles anyway. So I let this completely dry and then we're going to seal the milk paint. While that milk paint is still drying, we're going to finish the top. One pro tip here is make sure that your paper is completely dry before you move on to the sanding piece. If it is not dry, you're going to rip your paper. Learn from my mistakes, guys. Sometimes I get impatient and I want to do this much quicker, faster, sooner. It is not better. So make sure your paper is dry and then take a piece of sandpaper and in a downward motion, sand down, and it will give you the perfect, crisp, clean image all the way around. Now that the milk paint is dry, I'm using that dark oil wax again, and I am going to seal the entire base. Let it sit for 10 minutes, wipe away any of the excess, and the base of this is completely done. But like I said, as you can kind of see, the handles are starting to chip, and it basically chips all the way off. So I do have a secondary solution for the handles. I took my sandpaper and I basically sanded off as much of the milk paint as I possibly could. Now I'm using Fusion's Coal Black and I am going to apply 2 even coats of that to the entire piece. If you haven't used the Fusion mineral paint, it is very similar to DIY paint. It sticks to almost any surface. And then once you let it cure and harden, it will be on there permanently. So I think that having these dark handles just really complements the pink and the top. What did you guys think? I hope you're all inspired to start painting things red and pink for Valentine's Day. Keep in mind, these can stay in your home decor all season long. I just was trying to really inspire you for the upcoming holiday. Is it a holiday? I guess. Anyways, happy Valentine's Day, or I should say happy New Year to all of you. And you may have wondered, where I have been. I actually had a video all set to go for Friday, and I went to go do all my taping for it. And unfortunately, there were some IT issues. So I was able to resolve all of those, and fingers crossed, I will not have any more in the near future or ever. But I want to wrap up on that video. I was going to talk about 2023, and I was going to give you some of my highlights, how I felt the year went. Honestly, you guys, the year was awesome, and it was all of you that made it awesome. I could not be doing this without every one of you. So thank you all for always following along, watching my videos, watching my lives, giving me thumbs up, making comments, sharing my content, always, hitting that subscribe button. If it wasn't for you, I would not be able to do this. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Some highlights from 2023, traveling to the IOD conference, meeting the IOD sisters, heading over to Debbie's, meeting her, being on Royce's creative team, asking to be on the IOD creative team. I mean, there's just so many highlights, but I think the number one highlight of 2023 was, if you guys watched back in May, I was able to leave my full-time job, or my daytime job, I should say, and now do this permanently as my full-time job. So that was a big, big hurdle, and I guess I was so scared for so long that was more of like a security blanket for me. And I could have did this probably a whole lot sooner. But I kept saying like, what ifs, what if that, what if this? And finally, all signs led and showed me that it was time. So that was my big accomplishment for 2023. In 2024, where do I see my business going? I am adding a new product mid-year. I have been working on it for quite some time, and I will be kicking it off mid-year. So it is something that I am creating and doing. So I'm really excited, and I don't want to give you too much information now, but other than mid-year, be watching for a new product on my website. With my website, that was another thing. In 2023, I converted it from one platform to another. I was extremely scared to do that. I did not die, so it was a smooth transition, got it over there, and now I'm able to do so much more with my business. I'm kicking off a blog this year. I am also kicking off another thing on February 1st, so be watching for that. That's the little teaser. And what else? I am just going to continue to grow on all my socials, and just put out a ton more content for you guys. So again, thank you all for following along. I appreciate it. I love each and every one of you. I love reading the comments. I just love, like all the participation on my lives. I have so much fun with all of you, and I am really living my best life ever, guys. And it's all thanks to you. So we will see you on Friday. Not sure yet what you're going to get, but we will see you then, and have yourselves a great week. Bye.